Good Saturday morning, sports fans. You're listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. And today we have a special guest host. We have a special guest and a honored guest, Coach Mark Oates of Leesburg High School football. But let me welcome Randy V from the radio station.
Hey, good morning, Greg. How are you doing?
Good morning. And we have Ken Rich, who is substituting for the vacationing Bob Wiltman.
I'd rather be vacationing with.
Uh-oh.
Can I?
Ruh-roh.
There we
Ruh-roh,
go.
rabbit.
I'm not airborne.
I don't hear him.
Okay, try again.
I'm now
Oh, there he
airborne.
is.
There I am.
I think it's you. I think it's you, Randy, that keeps messing with these dials over there.
I don't touch anything but the two buttons I need to.
I'd rather be
which is the
vacationing
automation button and the phone button. I
Well,
leave
actually-
everything else alone.
Actually, I don't think James knew that Bob was going to be away, so he turned his microphone down.
I got
Sorry
you.
about
I'd
that
rather
what it
be
is?
with Bob, actually, if he's on vacation.
He's in Pittsburgh.
No, I wouldn't. I'd rather be here.
Right.
Now, if I was leaving and wasn't blessed to be part of your show, I would move all of the dials and then just split for the day.
Right.
We've
But since
experienced
I knew I
that
was going to be
before.
here,
Thank
I
you.
didn't mess around with anything.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bob probably heard news he wasn't thrilled about this morning before we start talking to these guys about Roethlisberger deciding that this may be his very last year as an NFL pro quarterback.
Wow.
Yeah, he said he might be done. Usually when somebody makes an announcement that early,
Right.
they're serious.
Yeah.
So,
I
anyway.
personally, I thought he was done 3 years ago.
So
but,
did most of the people in Pittsburgh.
Oh, it's digressing now.
All right.
Isn't it NFL for the fourth hour?
No.
No.
Well, all right. Well, hey,
Hey.
we got football. That is important because it is right on our heels, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, it's goodness gracious. Well, that's a great segue, isn't it? We have, guess what? We have he's the honored guest, right?
Yes.
Because there's like
Well, you're
special host,
definitely not.
special guest, and then the honored guest. And that is Coach Mark Oates of the Leesburg High School football team. And he's the head coach, recently announced. And I'll let him go from there. But I like to say that he was certainly, we're blessed to have him in the studio, and I think, in just speaking with him before we got on the air, blessed to have him in our community, and certainly as part of the coaching staff, the head coach at Leesburg High School. I see great things in our future, in our community because of you. Just a wonderful gentleman. So without further ado, let's go into learning a little bit more about you, Coach. You came from North Carolina, so tell us a little bit about your, coming from North Carolina, being raised up in North Carolina, and your schooling there, and then how did you end up here at Leesburg High?
Well, I was born and raised in Clinton, North Carolina. You guys spoke earlier about Pittsburgh Steelers. A few years ago, they had a running back, Willie Parker. He's from my hometown.
Nice.
Longtime Virginia basketball coach Terry Holland. He's also from my hometown. And the great Pete Maravich also lived there for a while during his junior high years. So there's been some pretty good athletes
Absolutely.
that come out of Clinton. But Clinton is a small town in southeastern North Carolina, home of the Dark Horses. We're the only school in America with that nickname as our mascot. It's a farming community when I was growing up. It's
Right.
actually growing now. But Sampson County is the largest hog-producing county in the United States.
There's something to be proud of.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I love bacon.
I love barbecue,
I
Carolina.
like that too.
There you go.
But it was a great place to grow up. Good Lord blessed me with phenomenal parents. My mother and father, if the Lord would allow me to go into the parent store and pick out two parents, I couldn't have picked out two better parents. My father passed away back in 2010, but I still have my mother, and I was able to spend the past couple of weeks with her, so that was a blessing. And Clinton's just a great place, and I went to high school, Clinton High School, and then I matriculated on to Guilford College in Greensboro, North Carolina. Had a wonderful time there, great school, academically, had an opportunity to play some football. And upon graduating, I worked a variety of jobs. My first job out of college was actually digging ditches. But I was blessed by my mentor, Lennon Fisher, who got me into coaching. He was my high school position coach, and he offered me a job at East Bladen High School in Elizabethtown, North Carolina. So that's where my football coaching career began. had an opportunity to coach some really good athletes there. Tyrell Godwin's probably the most high profile in 1997. He was the New York Yankees #1 draft pick. There was a lot of publicity surrounding him at the time. They called him the $1 Million Scholar because he turned down the Yankees to attend UNC on a Moorhead scholarship where he played football and baseball and was an All-American in both sports, graduated in 3 years. And he's actually, as of last summer, I think he moved to Orlando and is like a vice president with BB&T. So
Gotcha.
That's kind of how my coaching career got started.
Is your mom still up in North Carolina?
Yes,
Yeah.
she's still in Clinton, North Carolina. She's 86 years old and still going strong.
Yeah. And are you still her baby boy?
Well, actually, I'm her middle boy.
Okay, you're middle. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how old you get, though, Coach. Right? You're still
Oh, yeah.
you're still going to be her little boy.
She took care of me. She took good care of me while I was home, cooking my favorite meals.
Now, what's that?
My favorite meal in the whole wide world is stew beef and rice, gravy, cabbage. I love cabbage,
Yeah.
and I love rice.
I would have died at your house.
Hey,
That sounds
that was
good.
it.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I don't know any of those foods.
Oh, you'd love it.
No, I probably wouldn't. My mom was a horrible cook. Everything I ate as a kid came out of a black cast iron skillet. I think she put my Frosted Flakes in there. It was not good.
Good stuff comes out of those.
I use it now,
Yeah.
but the stuff that she prepared in it,
I
I
can't
think
think
was
of anything bad that come out of a cast iron skillet.
Frosted Flakes. I just said that.
Frosted
Yeah.
Flakes. I'm going to have to try that when I get home. Then.
I can't
How about
drink.
Fruit
I
Loops?
can't drink milk, so I never had to deal with the
Oh,
cereal.
No, there you go.
What position did you play in football?
In high school,
Yeah.
tackle, offensive
Okay.
tackle, defensive tackle, and then tight end.
And you graduated.
Did
with
you
bachelor's
change?
degree.
I'm sorry. Did you change positions when you got to college because of size, or were you a
Size.
fast tackle?
No, it was a size thing.
Was it? Okay, that's interesting.
You graduated with a bachelor's degree, right?
Yes,
in sports management, right?
And have a minor in administration of justice and history and religion.
I was looking over your coaching career, and it's quite credential. That's for certain. So I know that's another reason why we're blessed to have you here in our community in terms of the good things that are going to come towards Leesburg High School football. But you've had a variety of coaching experience from track and field, basketball. Of course, you did some football coaching as well. I mean, you've been offensive line, I think it was, your running backs, here both in Leesburg and abroad. But tell us, I'd like to understand a little bit more on your philosophy, because a lot of things, I was reading some different interviews that you've had that at least are on Google, right, or Yahoo. One of the things that really stuck out with me, and I thought was probably the most important, was that you really seemed to be like a man of character. In that, you have your coaching skills in terms of how you coach a player to whatever, run through the line or for tackling or whatnot, but you really give a great deal of attention not only to the athlete but to the student athlete. And I really, one, as a parent and as a member of our community, at first I'd just like to say thank you for having that kind of attention for our kids, because they really need that mentor that's out there. But if you would, share with me a little bit about your coaching philosophies, and then I wanted to understand a little bit better about when you do track and field, when you do basketball, when you do football, what are some of the things that you share as a coach that sort of transcends all the sports? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right.
Well, first of all, in coaching the different sports, the one thing that transcends all of them, you mentioned, character. We believe in holding our kids accountable for their actions, not just on the field, not just at school, but at home, in the community. And I try to convey to our kids that even though they might know it, there's some kid out there, and sometimes even a peer, that looks up to them. They're someone's hero. There's some little kid in their church. There's some little kid in their neighborhood. It may even be a sibling that looks up to them. And if they go out and do great things, that little person's going to want to do great things. If they're out doing not so great things, that little person's going to follow that lead. So we try to get our kids to understand that if your personal life is out of order, your athletic life is going to be out of order. And just to carry yourself with pride and discipline and dignity. And as I spoke with you before we went on the air, I've tried to live my life in a way that I don't bring shame to my parents or my parents' name. And we try to get our kids to buy into that same philosophy and to love each other and to understand that this is a game. And 10 years from now, no one's going to care how many games you won, but they're going to care what type of person you are. And I want to win as bad as any other coach, trust me, probably more. But I'm more interested in where my young men and women are in 10, 15 years. I think that's what's important.
Right.
So we could go out and win a state championship this year, and 20 years from now, if all our guys are troublemakers and lawbreakers, then we weren't successful. And that's what's important to us.
You're coaching how to win the game of life, not necessarily just football, right? You had a great deal of success when you were here in Leesburg earlier as the girls basketball coach. I certainly think that's worth mentioning here because you took them 3 times in your stint here, took them to the Final Four.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I always tell people I didn't take those girls to the Final Four. They took me. I didn't make one jump shot. I didn't defend anybody, that's for sure. But I was blessed with some tremendous young ladies, and probably even more importantly, I was blessed with young ladies who had tremendous parents. And at Leesburg, we never had an issue with girls not being at practice. They were there. I can probably count on one hand the number of practices my kids missed in that 11-year period.
Right.
And they worked hard. They wanted to be the best. They took pride in their craft. They took pride in the school. So that was a recipe for success.
Well, you mentioned pride, and I want to say real quick, we had the new principal in here yesterday, Mr. Randolph, and he was talking about pride.
Yes.
Hashtag Leesburg Pride. Pride's very important. So I see some great things on the future for Leesburg, not only in their football, but for their school, too. And we'll get back to that next segment.
Right. You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. We are sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And we will be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Welcome back to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410. And we are talking today with Coach Mark Oates of Leesburg High School Football. And we've got Randy V in here and Ken Rich. And if you'd like to call in, our phone number is 352-315-1410.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we sort of left off a little bit about the upcoming season here. I want to talk a little bit about that. Last year they didn't have a great season. That's unfortunate. I know one of their quarterback certainly was injured, but I understand he's healthy. And he's coming back. He did great back in 2015. I think he collectively passed and ran for a little over 1,000 yards, which is outstanding. And so we look for Wyatt Rector here to be just as good, if not better, coming into what would be his senior year, if I'm correct. Am I correct, right? So,
yes, sir.
All right. Well, I understand you got the coaching job, and that happened right there on your birthday, so that was a pretty good gift, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
As I was talking to you a little bit earlier, football, coaching having a head job at football was your dream job.
Yes.
And then certainly right here in Leesburg where you've had that great success. Well, tell us a little bit about, because the season is right on us. I know you're starting some practice on Monday, and then we are going to have the full season starts, what is it, probably about 2 or 3 weeks?
Right.
I mean, it's football time already.
Right.
It's amazing you're going to be playing football
Yeah.
and it's 100 degrees outside.
And I just want to mention this. I don't know that WQBQ is going to be broadcasting the games here on the station.
Absolutely. And
Awesome.
we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
That James just brought that news out, I think a couple days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
And but yeah, he's been in talks with with Leesburg High School, and we are going to be broadcasting every game of the Leesburg High School football
That's awesome.
So we're really excited about being there with you. So we'll be in the press box. You'll be on the sideline. But yeah, there's James got a couple folks lined up that are going to be out there every Friday night.
Yeah, Ron Delgado, who used to do the show,
Right.
before us.
Right.
He's
So-
going to be back.
I know they got lots of plans. I know they're very excited about
Yeah.
having that opportunity. So, but anyway, what's on the horizon for Leesburg High School this season? What you gonna do? What's your plans without giving away the secrets?
Our plan is to put a product on the field that the community can be proud of. A lot of stuff we talked about earlier, character, that kind of thing. But at the same time, we want to be an exciting football team. We're going to have the capabilities of running the ball and passing the ball. In the past, Leesburg's run more of a dink and dunk type of offense. We've got Wyatt back there sitting in the pocket. He's got a bazooka for an arm. So we're going to take advantage of it. We're going to throw the ball down the field and utilize his assets. He can also run the ball. We're not going to run him as much as he's run in the past, but it's always nice to know you have that ace in your pocket when you need it.
Is he a senior?
He is a senior, and he's a University of Virginia commit. But more importantly, Wyatt's a great kid. He's had a good upbringing. His parents are sound people, and his brother Waylon's on the team also, and he has a younger brother who will be a freshman. He doesn't play football. William, I think is his name. He's a basketball player, but they're a tremendous family, and it's been good getting to know Wyatt. It's a quality individual.
Coach, do a lot of the kids still go both ways, or do you have people that are more focusing on offense or defense?
Well, at Leesburg, they're going to go both ways. I'm from the school of thought you put your best athletes on the field, and what we're going to try to do is rest them on the side of the ball where we don't need them quite as much. But we're going to take our best players, with the exception of Wyatt, and put them on both sides. We're going to play old school football. That's the way I was brought up. That's the only way I know. We're going to go out and punch people in the mouth.
Well, I think at this age, too, it gives them a chance. For somebody that's not on a specialty position, maybe a wide receiver or a quarterback, you really haven't decided where you want to be yet.
Right.
And you may very well find that you could start out as a defensive lineman and end up being an offensive lineman or end up being a tight end like it was with you.
Right.
I was listening to some stuff on the way up here, and they were talking about kickers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find, and when I was playing high school and even when I was in college for that matter, kickers really were kind of like, would like you to play, but this is all you can do. Can you kick the ball 30 yards? Well, now because it's become such an integral part of the game, even at the high school level, do you find kids that are gravitating to being special teams people and being field goal kickers or being kickoff experts or punters that they know now they can go into the NFL and make, $3-4 million a year when they used to get hourly wage pretty
Right.
much?
I think you're seeing more kids get involved. The one position that you left out is your long snapper. That's a position that kind of gets overlooked, but every NFL team has one. The guy at Pittsburgh, Warren, he's a North Carolina Tar Heel kid, and he's been in the league now 10, 12 years, and that's all he does is snap the ball, and he makes good money. So, yeah, I think you're seeing that, and football coaches, I know Randy is a big soccer guy. There was a time when football coaches didn't like soccer.
Right. Now they're
called
really
it
looking to
kickball.
recruit them.
But a lot of times, football coaches are working hand in hand with the soccer coach to get kickers.
Hey, Coach, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we got a caller who wants to ask you a question.
Okay.
Caller, you're on the air. You're on the air, caller.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Who is this?
Nathaniel?
I thought it was you, Nate. How you doing, man? Are you going to be at practice Monday?
Yeah.
All right, be ready. I might need you to do something.
Okay.
What position do you play, Nate?
He's a little boy.
Water boy.
You're what?
Water boy.
Water boy, the hydration technician.
Right,
Okay.
we call it a hydration specialist.
Oh, specialist. I've upgraded. Awesome. Well, you're very important on these 100-degree days, especially with these boys out there playing in pads and helmets.
Yes, sir.
He's got his radio on there, so he's trying
See
to
you Monday.
All right, Nate, you be a good boy, man. I met Nate at
All
a
right,
Lightning
bye-bye.
game.
Oh, yeah. Did you No, I won't even say that.
Yeah, that
We're not
worked.
going to use the R word here. Was he your hydration technician last year, specialist?
No,
Sorry.
no, I just met him
Yeah, you
this
picked him
summer
up?
at a Lightning game, and I told him, I said, you should come out and visit the program. I was like, if you show up to a game, I might let you come down on the sideline. And he took me up on it, and he's been to just about every summer workout.
Oh, that is awesome.
And so he's a great young man, and that's another thing we're trying to do. One of the philosophies that I had in basketball, I wanted to ladies who had played at Leesburg in the past, I wanted them to feel comfortable coming back. I wanted the girls that were there to take pride in the program, and I wanted little kids to grow up wanting to be a part of the program. So we're approaching football with that same mentality, and Nate's just an example of that.
That's pretty neat.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Nate, thanks for calling in, buddy. That's pretty neat.
That was a surprise.
Because we get to talk about quarterbacks, we get to talk about running backs and offensive linemen and offensive tackles. But we don't ever get to talk about the most important person out there on the field. That's the guy who's got the water.
There you go.
So, how's your running game going to be this year?
I think it's going to be good. If not, I'm going to fire some guys. But we have a kid, Jatavian Solomon, at tailback that I really like. He's not very big, but he has great vision. He has a feel for the game. He had a good spring game. We also have T.J. Manuel, who's a tremendous student athlete. TJ has like a 4.3 GPA.
Wow.
And runs a 4.440. He's in the backfield. And my other tailback, Rashawn Scott, he has great speed to the outside. And then we have some other guys like David Robinson, who David's like one of those little Swiss knives that, he plays everywhere,
a
full
good
back,
utility player.
slot, receiver, linebacker. And we made a move this past week. Justin Shostrowski, who in the past has played on the offensive line, we moved him to fullback so we can get physical. He's about 6'2", 230. And
Wow.
another kid, Bobby Patterson, who's a physical specimen. So when we want to go out power running game, we feel like we have some guys that can get that done. I think that takes some pressure off Wyatt. A quarterback's best friend is a running game. And a running game's best friend is a quarterback that can put the ball where it needs to be. So I feel like we'll be balanced.
Good.
The kids are a great bunch of kids. They're buying in. They don't complain. That's the thing I love about this team. I talk to the coaches all the time. These guys don't complain. And I think they want to win. I think they're willing to pay the price to win. So I'm excited.
Do you have a lot of returning players this season? I mean, was the majority of your makeup, is it seniors, juniors?
We don't have a lot of seniors. I
Yeah.
think we maybe have 9 seniors. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's not a lot. We're mainly sophomores.
Sophomores? All right.
Yes.
So what you see here is it's likely to stick around for 2 or 3 years then. And
We
something
hope
to
so.
build upon. Yeah,
we
absolutely.
hope so. They're great kids, and
Well, getting a large group of kids on the sports team to buy in says a lot about the kids themselves and the coach, of course, because you got to convince them that there's something worth to be buying into. And certainly, as winning is part of that. I know they had, like I said, a little bit of a down year last year, but there seems to be a new air, that pride. There's something. I don't know. There's just something new going on at the school. So I think everybody's excited about that. Now you have the what did you call it? The kickoff that's coming up in a couple weeks.
we have a jamboree on August 12th. It's actually an officials coaching clinic where they train officials. So it actually gives us an opportunity to get in some extra work.
And that's going to be at Leesburg High School.
That will
as
be
well.
at Leesburg
Okay.
High School. Kickoff is at 9:30. I think the first game will be Leesburg versus Tavares, and then Eustis versus
should be
South
good.
Lake. Yeah,
So you were there last year, right?
there you go. And then the last game, I think, is going to be Lake Mineola and South Sumter. Excuse me.
Gotcha.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
All right. Now but the kickoff for the season, the first game is an away game,
Yes.
and that's going to be in. You call it this? You call it the Citrus Classic?
The kickoff classic.
The kickoff
is
classic
at Citrus High School.
Okay, so I got it all backwards there.
That's
didn't
on
I?
August 18th.
And then you're in South Sumter the following Friday, and then at home, the third game of the season,
Right.
and that's going to be Eustis. If I recall correctly, that's going to be on the 31st.
I think.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I remember looking at the schedule. I'm pretty sure it's the 31st because I remember, hey, that's going to be probably the first home game that the Q is going to be out there doing the broadcasting.
Right.
So, all right. Well, anything else that you might want to add for the upcoming season? Let our listeners know what's going to happen.
Well, first of all, I want our listeners to come out and support us. You know, we want to put bodies in the seats. As I said earlier, we're going to try to put a product on the field that they can be proud of, and I think we will play an exciting brand of football. I talked about offense, but defensively, Coach Freeze, our defensive coordinator, Luke Freeze, he's doing a tremendous job getting our defense ready, and all the defensive coaches. We're really just excited. I think we're going to be able to play fast, and we're going to play hard, and we're going to play smart, and we're going to play together. And we're looking forward to that South Sumter game. South Sumter is one of the top programs in the state traditionally. I have a lot of respect for Coach Lawrence and what they do over there, and Coach Sherman before him. And, we want to be ready to play that game. I'm not afraid to say that that's a big game for us,
Right.
For a number of reasons. Player confidence. I think if we can go over there and defeat South Sumter, I think the community buys in and sees that as a sign that we're headed in the right direction. And our goal is to go 1-0 every Friday night. And we're going to respect all of our opponents, but we're not going to fear anyone. And a lot of people said, when you build a program, it's going to take a couple of years. I understand that, but our mission is to win this year. Our seniors don't have another year. We want to do what we need to do so that our seniors can go out on a positive note. And as I said, I'm not being, braggadocious, but I'm not afraid to say that we want to win, and that's the mentality I want our players to have, and that's what we're going to do moving forward.
Well, they can't have it unless you have it.
That's
There you
right.
go.
And I don't think it's braggadocious at all because you're going in there with a level of confidence, and that's what you need to have. That you can't go on the field thinking you're going to lose or you're going to maybe squeak by this game.
Right.
You got to go in there thinking you're going to take it.
Right.
Coach, can you do preparation? Like, is there enough stuff on YouTube, or do you send scouts to other teams' games and see what they look like offensively and defensively? Do you change game plans from game to game, or is it just that you put a game plan in place and then you help the kids follow through with it?
Well, to answer your first question, technology today, there's a program called Huddle, which most schools are on, so you can exchange film. It's a lot easier than it used to be. You had to go and trade film. But as far as the preparation, growing up in North Carolina, I was always a big North Carolina Tar Heel basketball fan, and Dean Smith, and his philosophy was they worked every day to get better at what they do and not so much time preparing for what other people do. And I've adopted that philosophy. We're going to try to make Leesburg High School football better each day we practice. And if we're covering the fundamentals and doing the things we're supposed to do, we're going to be prepared to play anyone that we play. Now, of course, you're going to tweak little things, but for the most part, we're going to concentrate on what we can control, and that's us.
And so you'll know, but you do know from school to school who the standouts are.
Yes.
So if you have to isolate, or if you have to say, okay, my best linebacker is going to be on this running back,
Right.
focus on him, tie him up, put the quarterback in bad positions anytime
Right.
that you can. I mean, the neat part about that, the reason I asked that question is because the more familiar these kids become with that at this age, for the ones that are going to progress and maybe play in college or hope to have long-term opportunities to play, that philosophy being inherent to them now
Right.
is going to have huge impact on them when
Correct.
they move on. So
Correct.
good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Coach, thank you very much for coming into the studio today
Thanks
and
for having
sharing a little bit about what's on the horizon for Leesburg High School football.
We appreciate it.
And,
Thank you very much.
We're blessed to be a part of the program now.
Thank you.
So,
Look forward to working with you guys.
We see you in the studio today and on the sideline here in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Knock 'em dead, Coach.
That's the game plan.
There you go. Good luck.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. You're listening to Red Zone Radio Sports. We are sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. We'll be right back after these messages. We're back with Red Zone Radio Sports here in WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. And if you'd like to call in, our phone number is 352-315-1410. And I guess, Ken, we're going to talk a little baseball.
You know, what else do we talk about when I'm here?
I love baseball.
I do too. I think it's an advantageous time for baseball.
Right.
First of all, it gives us a break from football camp starting remarkably early,
Right.
Which certainly we can talk about because of the Patriots, I guess. But anyway,
Sure.
This is the last weekend before free agency ends on Monday.
Right.
And I could actually have a rant about this when we get into it. But what I find interesting is that the second wild card team in the playoffs has truly changed what baseball looks like, I think.
Yeah.
And more teams are still in play. 2 weeks ago, there were like 15 out of 30 teams that really didn't know if they would be buyers or sellers at the deadline.
Right.
And interestingly, they call it a deadline. I mean, the normal way that people change teams ends on Monday, but for all intents and purposes, for the next 30 days, it's the same thing. They just have to put a player on waivers before they can get him off their team and onto your team.
Right.
But it's been interesting so far because it's funny. There haven't been any, other than Quintana going to the Cubs, there haven't been any real blockbuster trades. In my opinion.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is the names that I would go, wow, I wouldn't mind having that guy on my club. They're not getting hardly anybody worth a darn for the trade value. For example, J.D. Martinez from the Tigers. The guy's ripping the ball. I mean, he's really come into his own the last couple of years. He just went to the Diamondbacks. He's hitting .305 going in. OPS over 1,000, and they got like two minor league guys that no one had ever heard of before. Lucas Duda just went to the Rays.
Yeah.
Hit a home run in his first game.
Right.
It's nice. I thought he had a shot actually as to be something special a couple of years ago, but he kind of has been injured a lot.
Yeah.
But they gave him their 30th ranked minor league player. I mean, 30th. This guy's he's been starting for the Mets, who should have been much, much better this year had they not been decimated with injuries. So, and it goes on, and of course I'm extremely disappointed in what the Red Sox have done, other than picking up Nunez, who I think is a good get, that they got Eduardo Nunez to play third base for them. But they need a power bat, and there's some out there, and I don't care where they put them. The guys that were supposed to be providing power for the Red Sox are not, and now another fragile ex-Tampa Bay player is on the DL in David Price. And I haven't really been down on him. I mean, I hated him when the Red Sox faced him, but they seem to generally do fairly good against them, whereas he did very, very well against everyone else. And he was actually pitching quite well, but he had this big flap with Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah, there's just something, about David Price that bothers me in the sense of he never wins the big games.
He has never won a big game, at least not in the playoffs.
Right.
But interestingly enough, and I think people don't put enough emphasis on understanding what small town baseball is. Right. I mean, these guys that come from markets that nobody cares about. I mean, they go, they play over in that dingy swamp over in Tampa Bay, and it's a horrible place to play baseball. And until they started playing well in the late 1990s, early 2000s, you could go there anytime you wanted, and you could sit literally in the dugout for like $42, and they'd ask you to make some decisions that would affect the game. It was awful.
I remember going there for a couple of Yankee games where the stadium was completely filled with Yankee fans.
Same with the Red Sox, no question. That was the only time that there might be difficulty in getting a seat.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they started playing better, and,
Right.
and good for them. I've never been a big Madden fan, but he did a marvelous job with that team. And so, but it honestly appears to me that they leave there thinking that this is going to be their big ticket. This is the second time that it's happened to the Red Sox in particular, that with Carl Crawford and with David Price, they don't handle it well when they get out of their hometown little cocoon.
Right.
And I don't seem to see it happening with a lot of other teams. So maybe it's just Boston. I know the fans are maniacal. I know the media.
Well, I know both the Mets and the Yankees have either had to get rid of players or brought in players that turned out to be big busts because they came from small markets.
Yeah, maybe it's bigger than I think, and I'm kind of focused on that area. But I think you're right.
But I think you go Philadelphia, New York, Boston. Those are really big media sports centers where you get even Los Angeles, which is a tremendous market, just doesn't have that kind of media.
No, it doesn't. And that it's funny you mentioned Philly because they made a really odd trade, I thought, yesterday. They traded Jeremy Hellickson to the Orioles.
Right.
Now, I liked Hellickson when he was here. And I thought he had, he had several really good years. He got hurt. Then they traded him. And I still thought that he actually gave Philly a pretty decent extension on their starting five. But Baltimore needs way more than what would probably be construed as a third or fourth arm in their pitching staff.
Right.
As bad as they are, Showalter could be out there pitching better than most of the guys that they have. But they have really no shot. It was just kind of a weird acquisition that kind of came out of nowhere. And I think those are going to continue to happen throughout the weekend in hopes that somebody finds lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I also have been reading with a lot of these trades when you kind of scratch your head and then you look at it behind and it comes down to the money, the contracts that they have.
Well, that's one of the
some of these guys, some of these teams are just unloading contracts.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, that's one of the reasons that they're positive that Verlander is going to end up somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I drafted him high on one of my fantasy teams.
Right.
But I still knew that last year he was hurt for a while. He and his girlfriend were disappointed that Porcello beat him for the Cy Young last year.
Yeah.
And he did have a good year, but he's been doing it differently than he used to. I mean, he used to be overpowering 1 through 9. Now he was getting better run production. The Tigers are pretty crappy, so he's not getting that run production. He doesn't
I don't
look the
think you
same.
can say that word on the radio.
Oh, I can't say crappy?
No, Tigers.
Oh, I can't say Tigers? Okay, because then that means we can't talk about Tiger either. But at the end of the day, when you look at what's transpiring to get new players into new teams, it seems like there's a lot of teams that are kind of like praying for something that might turn into something better.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I heard someone say yesterday, if you found a good player or even a better than good player who's having an off year or had 2 years in a row where his production had started to depreciate somewhat, then they say change of scenery, change of team. You generally get what you pay for.
Right.
And so and that doesn't necessarily mean the financial side of it. It means the ability standpoint at the time that you get these guys. And I fear that that's going to be a big thing. I don't think that Verlander is going to go help somebody win the pennant. I don't think, and that's part of what my rant is, by the way, because now the big name on the table is now Yu Darvish,
Right.
As a rental. And I really, really, really despise that entire concept. I can't imagine that when Doubleday invented this game and when all the other sports people that created the professional sports that have evolved, no one ever thought about renting a player for a couple of months. If that was the case, you'd just have a rental group and your team would change every week. And you would say, oh, I need this guy for this team for this game because he handles better against this center than another center or whatever. I mean, even the Bruins did it when they traded Ray Bourque after never winning a Stanley Cup during his career, great career that he had. They traded him to the Colorado Avalanche, who won 75 out of 82 games that year, and full expectation that he was going to get a Stanley Cup, and of course he did. Good for him, but what does that say about what he went there for? He wasn't playing much, he wasn't productive, and now he got a Stanley Cup. Big deal. I mean, if that's what you base your career on, then I think you're playing for the wrong reasons. But they're doing the same thing in baseball. They're talking about, don't be upset, Texas, if Darvish leaves, he could very easily sign with them in the fall. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous.
Well, he could, but I
I don't think they can afford him. I
Right.
agree. But, I mean, the Yankees did it with Chapman.
Yeah.
They tried to do it with Miller, although they didn't get him back. I
Well,
just...
I don't think Miller really cared, whereas Chapman made it plain to everyone that he wanted to be on the Yankees.
True.
And
but
he had no. I mean, the moment he won that World Series with the Cubs, he was signed right back with the
sure,
Yankees.
but I mean,
it was,
to the coach that was
Right.
here a little while ago,
Yeah.
right? He talked about building character. He talked
Right.
about creating the interest in the team. How do you go somewhere
Well,
and not give a crap because you don't even get a chance to know anybody on the team?
Yeah,
he
but-
probably doesn't speak enough English to converse with everybody. So he's there for 60 days. He wins a World Series and says, "Hey, hasta la vista."
Right.
I don't get it. I think it's ridiculous. I know Sabathia did it with Milwaukee the year that they traded him, and
Yeah.
that probably cut 5 years off of his career because of how much they used him. Although he's having a good year this year.
Sure.
But I think it's horrible, and I think that there are going to be more guys like that. I mean, they're talking about Asdrubal Cabrera started
Right.
off with a horrible year for the Mets, another Met,
Right.
and now he's having a bit of a resurgence.
Well,
but there's
he's
people
having
that
a-
need shortstops.
He's having a resurgence because there's a lot of talk about trading him, and he wants out of New York.
That's true. That I don't blame.
I
But-
mean, which always surprises me that these situations come up, and a player, whether it's like his last year in his contract, all of a sudden will become a 350 hitter, and you had like a 7-year contract with the guy and had to put up with 240s and
What does that say about that guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you focus. That's the problem with baseball. Is it? And I hate to say this, it's a marathon. You can't be up all of the time. That's why I think, like, when you have the World Series and the playoffs, you see things that you don't see from certain players during the season because they get up for those games.
Maybe. I'll tell you what. I'm really interested in seeing what happens with Sandoval going back to the Giants.
Right.
Okay. The Red Sox cut him. That was one of the
Yeah.
worst acquisitions in the history of the team. $94 million.
Right.
They still owe him like 60. So in essence, San Francisco gets the guy back that they had.
Right.
20 pounds lighter. And the first words out of his mouth were, "I wish I had never left."
Right.
Now, if you wish you had never left, so you just did it as a money grab.
Right.
Okay? And
Well-
if he goes back there and performs, I think it's worse for his career than if he goes back there and struggles.
Yeah, but here's the thing. We were touching on this a couple of weeks ago with Robinson Cano when he left the Yankees. A lot of this, I think, comes down to the advice they're getting from their agents.
Agent, yeah.
And the agents actually have so much to gain from those contracts that they talk these guys into doing, even though it's really not in their best personal interest. To me, there's no way Robinson Cano is doing better in Seattle than he would have been doing on the Yankees. The only thing that the Yankees had a problem with was the amount of time on. They were even going to give him more money per year,
Right.
But they wouldn't give him a 10-year contract. He and his agent, I think it was really his agent, wanted that 10-year contract, and talked him into it.
And I wouldn't disagree with that. And he struggled for the first couple of years.
Right.
I mean, he went 3,000 miles and he
Right.
went to a place where the fans that go may be as passionate as the Yankee fans, but there certainly aren't as many of them.
Right. And
he went to a place where you need a cannon to get the ball out of the ballpark.
Right.
And he's having a good year this year.
Right.
But what he did was he was at least professional enough to not give up.
Right.
And if perfect segue to go out to commercial break, the thought of giving up because I'm a big guy about because. I think you
Right.
can do almost anything you want if you have a good because.
Yeah.
My sales guys that might be listening will laugh at that, but I think that's why. He's a good man, he's a great athlete, and he's having a good year, and he may be able to pull that team into a wild card spot, although they
Yeah,
won't
I
go any
doubt it.
further than that.
I'm not high on them.
No? I've always been a fan. I just don't think King Felix has it anymore.
No. You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. We are sponsored by Bill Bryant, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their number is 352-787-2223. And we'll be right back after these messages. We are back with the Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County, and we're also your community service radio station. And we are here with Ken Rich, and we are talking baseball.
We are talking baseball. And by the way, thank you again for asking me to come in. I love coming in.
My pleasure, yeah.
It's fun, and it was fun meeting Randy and the coach.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about this area because I don't live here.
Right.
But he mentioned the Lightning, and one of my employees either used to play or knows a lot of people there, but his name's John Vaught, and he told me a couple cool stories about who he played with when they lived here. He played with Jonathan LaCroix. He played with a couple guys, and now I can't. Their names have evaded me. And then Brian Golden. And both of these kids were high-quality ball players.
Yeah.
And now I have the luxury of having them work for me up in the Lady Lake store.
Nice.
So
I actually went to the game last night.
he went Wednesday night.
Right.
And we're probably gonna do some sponsoring with them next year.
They're finishing up the season. They've got 2 games left. Their last home game is Sunday, but it was a good game. The Lightning fell behind because they committed a lot of errors.
Not good.
And but to their credit, they came back and ultimately won the game 9-6. But it was very entertaining.
Oh, 9-6.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And
do they play year round, or do they just take a break?
It's a college league.
Okay.
So they bring in these college players from around the country, and it's much like hockey does, minor league hockey does up in Canada, where a family will put them up.
Yep.
And so it's that sort of thing. So so they stay in the area here, and I think it's 6 weeks.
And that's pretty cool. I mean, you're a pretty knowledgeable guy. How do you think it would compare to like the Cape League?
I'm not really familiar with.
It's the premier league like that up in New England.
Yeah.
And almost everybody goes there.
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's probably not up to that scale. But what I do like about it is it is a wood bat league.
Yeah, I like that, and I also like the fact that it's local. I mean, there's nothing cooler, in my opinion, than going to a good quality local ballpark. And you don't have to even know who's playing. It's just worth watching them.
And actually, Leesburg, their stadium is great. It's up in Venetian Gardens. There's no admittance fee, so you
that's
can go
cool.
there free, and it's.
Speaking of Venetian Gardens, apparently, I'm going to be doing something with the Golf Splash this year for the Chamber. Have you played in that before?
No.
Well, my understanding is that they kind of make up phony golf holes throughout around the lake, and you only get to bring one club.
Okay.
And so we're going to supply some, if not all, of the carts for it, and we're going to do the event, and apparently it's had really, really good turnout. But it's funny, just a quick story. It's a true story about local marketing. If you think about it, for any retailers that might, or anybody that owns a business or knows someone that does, when you talk about baseball, I had a franchise that I used to go visit when I lived in Tampa. Because I didn't like their pizza, but I liked their pizza dough, and I make my own pizza. I'm half Italian, believe it or not. You can tell from my dark hair and dark complexion. For those of you that don't know me, I have red hair and freckles. So I used to buy dough from this guy, and it was really good dough, but I hated the pizza.
Right.
But every time I went there, I noticed that he had Little League pictures where number one team, first place, 8, 9, 10 years in a row. But and I was always busy, or he was busy. He came in, he sold me the dough really inexpensively. I grabbed it and booked. And finally, this one day, I had nothing to do, and I just was staring at these pictures, and it literally was 10 years So I asked him. I said, I've been coming here a long time. I'm a big, huge baseball fan. I was, scouted as a kid, and I played a little, and the Red Sox kind of liked me. And I said, but I look at this, and your kids must have been brilliant baseball players. Did any of them go on? And he said, oh, I don't have any children. I said, what do you mean? And he said, I love baseball. He said, it was the best time of my life when I was a kid was Little League baseball. So every spring and every fall, I go to all the tryouts. I sponsor the number one team. And for sponsoring that, they put my banner, my big, huge business banner from my pizza shop out in the center field on the fence. He said, so first of all, where do you think they go when they have a victory? And I said, they come here. He said, you're right. And he said, where do you think other teams go when they have one, or even when they lose sometimes, to kind of facilitate the problems that the kids might have about losing? They come here.
Right.
And he said, I've been doing it for 10 years. I have been lucky. I'm 10 for 10. They've all won their division.
Right.
And I said, what's it cost you? He said, it's like $500.
Right.
I said, you got to be kidding me. So for any business that's looking for a unique way to get to their customers, think about going down. If you like sports, whether it be high school basketball or football or Little League baseball or any of the summer leagues, any of that stuff, you've got a real opportunity to be important in creating your footprint as a business a little bit broader by sponsoring somebody local and help support the local economy. But more importantly, it's a way that you can touch your entire market. And I just think it's cool. But anyway, back to baseball. It's funny, 3 weeks ago, the New York teams, neither one of the teams were positive that they weren't going to be sellers, right? I mean, if the Mets didn't have a pitching staff that went down the toilet, they probably would not have been.
I don't think the Yankees. I think the Yankees knew that they were going to be buyers.
I thought they were going to stay stagnant. I thought that they felt that this was legitimately going to be the first and much more successful of a 2 or 3 year rebuilding plan.
Yeah,
you don't think that was a thought?
No, because firstly, New York fans don't put up with that.
Well, that's true.
The smart ones understand when you do it,
right?
But they really don't when you're this close. And for a lot of the season, the Yankees were in first place. They went into that. They had a really bad time there, right around right before the All-Star break. I mean, really bad. That actually allowed Boston to really get. I mean, because if they went 500, they would be like 8 or 9 games up.
Oh, no doubt. I understand. But the point is, they really don't have a pitching staff that's potential to win the World Series.
Pineda got injured.
Yep.
So that
great arm.
That
Kid's
was
got a great arm.
He's
got a head case.
Yeah, but that was a big blow.
Yeah, it was.
So that's why I think you're going to see one of these guys, whether it's who's Sonny Gray or Yu Darvish. There's a couple other ones.
I would be, in lieu of renting Darvish, back to my brief rant, I would certainly take a shot at Sonny Gray. But he's still, unless he can stay healthy, he's a number 3.
Right.
Okay, they don't have a number 1 unless Tanaka pitches like he did yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will even say this. I think Verlander is in play with the Yankees. I think it's not going to be. See, what the Yankees have been doing lately really well is they haven't just been throwing money at people.
No, I agree.
And so I think
they'd be throwing money at Verlander.
Well, I mean, it depends how much Detroit picks up of that contract.
It's $42 million left, I think.
But if they really want to get rid of him, and I think they do.
I think they do too.
They're going to have to eat some of that contract.
I think so.
They're going to have a tough time.
And he would probably be a guy you could trust. That would not have. I mean, because Detroit's not. It's not a metropolitan market anymore. But they have ardent fans. But it's certainly not like going from Pocatello, Idaho to Chicago.
Right.
So I think he'd fit in well. But more guys. So that I would dislike that, actually, from a Red Sox standpoint, if he went there, because I think he could really help them.
Right.
But I mean, Jay Bruce, another guy having a really good year.
He's on the chopping block.
Yep, and it's a decent contract. He's only owed about $8 million.
Right.
He's got 26 home runs. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys out there that have more home runs than anybody in the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And here they are yesterday losing, for another opportunity where they just don't have. I keep expecting that Oates is going to walk through the door, just giving it one more shot. But I think it's interesting that between the Mets and the Tigers, they're having, and the White Sox, They're having a going out of business sale,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep.
Even the Tigers are looking at getting rid of Iglesias.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the best fielding shortstops in baseball, and he's actually figured out a way to hit.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, there's some good players out there, but there are also guys that are having career years that might just be in the right place at the right time. A guy like a Zach Cozart.
Right.
Okay, he was hitting 370 for most of the first half.
Right. Yeah, that's thunder.
That is thunder, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I just was like, took my headphone off.
I thought it
'cause
was
it's like, it's raining out there.
I thought it was something I said.
No.
No, it sounds like we're doing the show outside
Right.
under like a tarp, which is
Well,
kind of cool.
just to let the
it's
the-
romantic,
just-
Greg.
Well, I'm glad there's a big sheet of bulletproof glass between us.
Yeah, that's a good plan. So anyway, if you're a baseball fan, this is kind of a fun time of the year because even you can always be hoping that your team is going to pick up
Right.
somebody that's going to have a
Well,
positive impact.
I want to pick on your Boston Red Sox a bit because Dave Dombrowski said they're really not going to be in the market for a pitcher.
I'm disappointed in that, to be honest.
Because they have Doug Fister, who they're going to put back in the rotation, bringing his 0-5 record and 7.46 ERA. So, as a Yankee fan, good luck with that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I was kind of excited. He had a couple of really good years, and a couple
Fister?
years. Yeah, when he
Right.
was with Washington, when he was with the Tigers.
Right.
When he went to Washington, in fact, from the Tigers, I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
But he first of all, his fastball can't break a pane of glass, and secondarily, they've brought him in 3 times where they were either tie, ahead, or 1 or 2 runs behind, and each of those times it fed that 0-5 record
Right.
because he just managed to either hang on for a couple of innings and then throw a balloon that somebody hit 500 feet, or he came in and just got lit up and didn't make it through. I don't understand. Some of that's feral. You just don't bring a guy like that in a stressful situation
Right.
when he's 0-3 and his earned run average is over 5. I mean,
Right.
maybe he didn't have enough time yet. I don't think it was a bad get, but they need more than just someone to replace Price now because Rodriguez is pitching with a bad wheel
Right.
that he's going to have surgery on at the end of the year. He said the pain is tolerable. But when I don't know, you're athletic. You did stuff. No matter, I don't care how good you are. If you hurt, if some part of your body
Right.
hurts, that's an integral part of you performing.
Sure.
You aren't quite as good at it. You
Right.
know, and that's it. Speaking of which, not quite as good as. But did you see that thing that happened to Robbie Ray last night,
No.
the Arizona Diamondback
No.
pitcher? 108 mile an hour line drive right off his head.
Ooh.
He was talking and he was coherent, but obviously he's in the concussion protocol, and they had to
Right.
take him to the hospital. He spent the night. When we think about that, that's like getting hit by a car
Yeah.
at 100 miles an hour,
Right.
and it hit him right in the head. I don't understand why all pitchers don't wear helmets. They say that the weight is an issue.
Yeah.
Then somebody needs to come up with something carbon fiber that doesn't weigh anything that at least gives them some protection. It's absurd to me that they're 60 feet away and their reaction time, they're not in a position always to react efficiently.
Yeah.
And you teach guys nowadays to hit it back to the box. You know, when I was playing, everybody was a pull hitter.
Right.
You know, and if you could learn to hit to the opposite field, you had a bonus. But for all intents and purposes, you weren't thinking about hitting it up the middle. You were pulling it down the third base line, pulling it down the first base line, or trying to hit the ball over the fence, which I was never very good at. But now to see, there's way too many people are taking it in the head, and it's frightening. And I'm sure it's got to be frightening for the pitchers.
Sure.
I don't know how you go back to that. You know, I don't know how you pitch as confidently without your release point being the last thing you do is putting your glove in front of your face,
Right.
and which may or may not scare the crap out of the batter. Anyway, so as the Tigers continue to their demise, Alex Avila is gone. Pretty decent catcher, first baseman.
Yep.
Had a real good first half. An interesting one that I'd love to see the Red Sox go after would be Brad Hand from the Padres. He had a great first half. He's a kind of another awkward thrower as a pitcher. And I think he was the only guy on the All-Star team from the Padres.
Right.
But I just don't understand. And by the way, his contract is under $1.5 million.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why Dombrowski's not pulling the plug. I mean, he's kind of pulling the plug.
Don't know.
And I know you're thrilled about that. I did hear today, though, the Red Sox might be interested in Lance Lynn.
Well, yeah, that was the one I was just going to bring up.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Cardinals. But the Cardinals aren't sure if they want to trade him or not.
They're not sure if they're sellers
Yeah.
yet, and they're playing. They're playing quite terribly.
Yeah,
Actually.
they-
Martinez
I
has been a
don't-
big, huge flop for them.
I don't think they have a hope of making a wild card.
Not
I
this
mean,
year.
there's too many teams ahead of them. So we'll be right back with the next segment after these messages. You're listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here. We are sponsored by Bill Bryan Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And we've got some other baseball stuff. And I wanted to throw the eligibility for the Hall of Fame guys for 2018. I've got some comments on that.
If I'm still on, that'd be fun.
You're on.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that'd be fun.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. We are back with our Red Zone Radio Sports here in WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County, and we're still talking some MLB trades and possible trades.
And you can tell how excited everybody is. The phones are just ringing off the hook.
Well, I think we captivate the people so much that they don't want to move away from.
They're riveted.
Yes.
I can live with that.
Right. That's how I make it so I can sleep at night. So, anyway, we got Addison Reed of the New York Mets, who is a relief pitcher, and he is highly desired by some teams, and I guess the Mets are just trying to figure out who's going to give them the best deal for Mr. Reed.
He's actually a pretty good arm, and again, the question is, how selective do you need to be? I mean, there's a lot of guys that are left-handed specialists, and now they're coming out with right-handed specialists. All these guys that are throwing the ball submarine pitching or throwing from some weird angle,
Right.
hoping they can get one or two batters out. Baseball has never really been that specific. You know, you either play and you can get people out, or you go to work at Tom McCann. Yeah, I mean, what's the value if I come in and I can get one guy out? Last night in the Red Sox game was a perfect example, in fact, because even though Porcello was pitching decently, Moustakas is having a great year, and they had men on second and third, 3-2 count, and even Johnny Gomes, who was the analyst last night, which was kind of an experience, kind of cerebral, said, you know what, 3-2 count, they ought to walk him and deal with the first baseman. I forget his name. He used to play for the Red Sox. Brandon Moss, and then he threw him an inside fastball, cleaned it out down, just barely got past the pesky pole, 4-0.
Right.
You know, so would have been smart to bring someone in just for him, a left-handed specialist. I don't like the specialities of the game.
Yeah.
I like the fact if you're a good ball player, you should be able to handle pretty much everything.
Right.
And so Addison Reed would be a nice addition to a couple teams, and I would not mind seeing him on the Red Sox. So, you have other pitchers that you want to look at?
No, I think we covered. the most desirable. I'm sure there's a lot of subpar guys out there, who are going to move. But I think those are the top. I don't want to say prospects because they're not prospects, but prospects in the term of being moved from one team to another.
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't know how many want to go. That's the other issue that I have. If you don't want to go, I just don't think you perform the same way you would.
Sure.
And granted, somebody like Nunez going from San Francisco, who's 39 games out of first place, going to Boston. I mean, that has to be at least somewhat invigorating, right? But and certainly no good teams are going to be training guys to bad teams. But I don't get it. I don't like it. I used to like free agency a lot more in all sports. I think it's the same way. Which, if we were going to leave baseball, which I know
Well-
we're not, I got a couple football things to talk
Well,
about.
you
with
know,
that.
I think I might disagree with you a bit on one thing when you're talking about moving players around and stuff. I actually think that this wild card situation is pushing that down because more teams have a shot at making the playoffs. Where back before the wild card, and you had no shot, you were trading away these players, and
I wouldn't disagree with that, but look
I
at the years, partially because of the years that the Dodgers and the Astros are having. Maybe that's part of it. But
Right.
think about the AL West. Seattle's in second place. They're one game under 500.
right,
17 games out.
right,
18 for Texas, 19 for the Angels, and 23 for Oakland.
right.
Okay, there's a whole division that isn't going anywhere.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I don't need to see every team, with a shot at first place or whatever. Somebody's got to lose, and it might as well be the Central.
yeah, I suppose.
like-
And then the West in National League.
But
I mean, early on, I picked Arizona and Colorado
Yeah.
to be good teams. Remember?
right,
Well,
Arizona's hanging in there.
Well, Arizona
I-
and Colorado, they're both playing well over 10 games over 500,
Right.
12 and a half and 13 and a half games out behind the Dodgers.
Right.
Why wouldn't? Although they're going to be the wild card teams.
yeah,
in- in the-
Arizona's got Arizona is the number one
number
wild
one
card
seed.
team.
Yeah, they are,
You know.
and they should be.
So
but it's very likely
so
they're going to get their butts kicked.
10 years ago, before the wild card, they're done and they're looking to unload players and they're I like it. I like the wild card. I think it's probably helped the situation what you're talking about a bit.
I like the wild card, and I actually like the second wild card.
Yeah.
I just think that the whole game, and it's I think it's industry wide. I
Yeah.
would say it's across
Yeah.
all sports. The talent level has been diluted so dramatically that you allowed these kind of breakout seasons. I mean, it's been a long time since you've had two teams playing 700 baseball.
Right.
I mean, come on. That means they could win 120 games, 125 games, and be a 700 percentage team.
Right.
But other than that, there's so much mediocrity. There's so much parity, which is what everybody prays for.
Yeah,
They all want that.
I don't like parity.
I hate it. I hate it in all sports.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, speaking of parity, these guys are not in that ilk. But you had mentioned something about the Hall of Fame guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be there's some players that I'm happy about going in this year, and
Johnny Damon.
yeah. No, in fact, that Pudge Fisk is going in this year, though.
Yeah.
And I think he deserves it. I do have a problem with that, though. Not just I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No, it's fine.
I've got a problem with the fact of the people who vote. I was listening to some station on Sirius the other day, and I swear to God, the guy that was broadcasting was the kid that people used to throw things at in high school, and maybe he was the team manager for the soccer team when I was in high school, which
Right.
means nobody played and nobody went.
Right.
And now he's a broadcaster, and he has a vote for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how on earth could you justify this guy's never broken a sweat in his life unless it was trying to tie his shoes? I don't get it. I don't understand how people fall into that category and get that kind of ability.
What I don't understand, and I think this is a simple fix, for the Hall of Fame, is you include every single member, living member of and they get a vote. Now, I don't mind broadcasters, and I don't mind,
They don't get a vote, the members?
No. Nope.
Because that would be, I would agree with that. I've never thought about that before. I absolutely would agree with that.
It just, to me, it just makes.
But does it
total
become?
sense.
But do you think it becomes cliquey? I mean, is that why they wouldn't do it? Because it's kind of like, well, we don't want him in there, even though he's a good player. He's kind of a jerk.
Well, I think what happened was it's the Baseball Writers Association.
Right.
Those are the guys who vote. And when they developed the Hall of Fame, whatever, 1936 or 5, whatever the year was, they gave it to those people. And now, I mean, they don't change, and it's time to make a change.
It's almost like, the criteria has changed. They've broadened the opportunity.
Right. Well, actually, they've
And
lessened the years. so
Right,
that
they've
your
lessened the
eligibility-
years. But now there's some guys, you can vote for a maximum of 10.
Yeah.
Okay, and one guy's philosophy, which if you think about it long enough, maybe it makes sense. He figures that if he votes for the 10 guys that he likes the best,
Right.
that the one possibility that could happen is that it might extend their time on the list a little bit longer.
Right.
Because you've got to get X percent. I don't know. I don't remember what
Yeah.
it is. And if you don't get that, you're out.
Right.
And this year, this particular guy who I think shouldn't be voting, he said he had to leave Schilling off this year, which was disappointing for him because he thinks Schilling belongs there.
Right.
And he was comparing him to a couple guys I know, actually, Mike Mussina, and now I forget who the other guy was. But anyway, I'm not sure Messina is a Hall of Fame pitcher, and if Schilling is, it's only because of his postseason.
Yeah.
And if you stipulate that, then I'm okay with it.
Right.
But if you're just kind of saying, well, he should be because, that's like saying that Ortiz should be because.
Right.
Ortiz should be there because he did all the right things even though he didn't play every day.
Right.
I mean, from a production standpoint. Plus, he was a good person. Or is a good person. So I think that's some of the criteria. But there are going to be people that constantly get in that are questionable, but they did a lot of the right stuff.
Right.
I mean, you look at some of your Yankee guys. I mean, even people like Guidry, he probably will never get in.
Right.
And yet he was a great pitcher.
Yeah.
Why is he not in and Schilling could get in?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that question myself. Mike Mussina is one of those guys. I think he should be in when you look at the era that he pitched in. The only thing that I call it the fear factor. I don't really think a lot of batters feared facing Mike Mussina.
No, because his fastball couldn't break a pane of glass.
Right,
He
but-
just had that knuckle
Right.
curve. And
Whereas Schilling, I think people, I mean, he could certainly go out there and throw a bad game, but people like, I got to face him tonight. I don't think
Yeah.
they were very comfortable, and that's kind of like part of the to me with those guys weren't dominant but they could certainly be very dominant.
Right. I mean, you got to admit, when Schilling and Johnson went back to
Yes.
back, you
Yes.
knew you had two pretty good shots.
Yes.
It's kind of the way that Sale's pitching right now.
Right. You don't want any part of Sale.
Right.
As it's like the Yankees play Boston and they miss Sale, and you're like, thank you.
Right. I don't disagree with that.
you know.
Yep. And I mean, and it's funny because there are a bunch of people that are right below that category.
Right.
And those are the guys that you kind of go, I really don't want to face them,
Right.
but I think we might have a shot.
You know.
But right now,
Because you look at Mike Mussina, 270. He's got 270 wins. There is not even anybody close to that.
No, there's not.
That
Not active, certainly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, all these pitchers that they're talking about right now probably have absolutely no shot at making 270. If they're pitched incredibly well, they might get 250.
Well, think about it. You got to do 270. You got to play 15 years
Right.
at 18 wins a season.
Right.
All right. Now, or 20 years at 10 at 15.
15, yeah.
And I mean, and there just aren't that many people that are playing that long
Right.
with that kind of consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, Sale broke a couple of unusual records that I thought that had never. He got to, and I forget the number, but he got to whatever the strikeout that he has right now. I think it's actually here. But anyway, whatever it is, he got there more quickly than any pitcher in the history of the game.
Right.
Just last week. And I find that incredible when you think of the likes of Nolan Ryan and some of the guys that used to pitch 9 innings every game
Yeah.
and strike out 12, 13, it seemed, in every game. Clemens in his heyday.
Right.
And Sale's done it in a little over half a season.
Right.
That's bizarre to me.
I don't know how old Sale is. Do you know?
I believe he's under 30.
Okay. So he
I-
probably has a shot. I don't know what his wins are, but you look at Scherzer. He's not going to make 250 wins. Yet they talk about him like he's the best pitcher that ever.
He wasn't even that good when he went to Washington for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really come
Right.
back into it. I mean, he had a couple of good years at Detroit, of course.
Look at Kershaw as well. I mean, yeah, the guy's got a low ERA and and strikes out a bunch of people, but I'd be surprised if he got 250 wins in his career.
No, and you get a bad back and you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, totally unrelated, but now the Ravens are dealing with their quarterback, thinking about bringing in.
Was it Flacco?
Flacco, yeah. He had one really, really good year, the year
Right.
that they went to the Super Bowl, and now he's got a bad back, and
Right.
he's recommending they bring in Kaepernick,
Yeah.
which I have no idea why this guy has such a what looks like to be a glowing resume, considering that he really had 1.5 decent seasons with the 49ers,
Right.
and he's a wingnut.
Right.
But I didn't know if you wanted to play football or not. But anyway, so you had some more. You had some more Cooperstown stuff.
Well, these are the best chance of first ballot Hall of Famers, and the list goes. I'll give you real quick: Johnny Damon, Andrew Jones, Chipper Jones, Jamie Moyer, Scott Rowland, Johan Santana, Jim Thome, and Omar Vizquel. Now on BaseballReference.com, they have a thing called the Hall of Fame Monitor, which is statistics from Bill James.
Okay.
So if you get 100 or above, you're likely to make it into the Hall of Fame. You're likely to make it in the Hall of Fame. If you're below 100, you're most likely
Not.
Okay.
Okay.
So Johnny Damon has a score of 90, so he's under.
There's no way he belongs there.
Right. I agree. Andrew Jones, 109. That's
I
his-
would say I would consider him borderline.
He's got 434 home runs, 1289 RBIs,
Batting average.
254. Chipper Jones,
Absolutely
actually,
first round battle.
He's got a 181.
Yep.
So he's 468 home runs, 1,623 RBIs, and a 303 batting average.
Those if you think about it, those are stats from players in the 60s, in the 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, those are stats that you look at him and go, and you know what, he did it really quite quietly if you think about it, because those are all the years that the Braves were blowing up the NL East and then losing in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
And I think they only went to the World Series twice and they won once.
Yeah.
But I mean, so he did that rather innocuously.
Yeah.
And had a marvelous career.
Yeah. Yep. And then Jamie Moyer.
I faced Jamie Moyer. Jamie
Yeah.
Moyer was another pitcher that couldn't break a pane of glass.
Right.
He hung around because he was in the big ball era when everybody was throwing 100 miles an hour. The ball was juiced. The guys were juiced.
Right.
And he threw the ball. He had a great breaking ball. No chance. What
Right.
did they give him for a number?
56. Now, I mean, he's got 269 wins and 209
That's
losses.
he pitched for 24 years, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Okay. He must be, because this is his first eligibility.
Yeah, he started playing when he was like 11, and he pitched until he was 46.
And then there's Scott Rowland,
Nope.
90. He's got a 99. I agree.
Quiet career.
316, 1287, and a lifetime 281 batting average. And
How many home runs?
316.
I mean, there's a lot of guys like him.
Yeah, and I also his on base percentage only 364.
Because he struck out a
Yep,
lot.
Yep. Johan Santana.
Nope.
He's got an 82.
Especially after his big trade that was supposed to change the world.
And he's trying to make a comeback.
I know
too.
he is. Another guy that can't break a pane of
now
glass.
here's one. Jim Thome.
You know, there were a lot of good guys that were playing when Thome was playing,
Right.
and he's over 500 home runs, isn't he?
612.
Yeah, I mean, and that for so long that was the primary
Yeah.
motivator. He's got to. I'm going to guess now, but I'm going to guess he was what, 275 hitter.
276. Very good.
Thanks. And I'm not looking at any stats for
No,
any of you
he's
people
not.
that don't believe it.
Right.
And he was a decent first baseman, but he was a lunky guy. He was a
Right.
Frank Howard kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'd say yes.
Well, he's up there in 156.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the last one on our list is Omar Vizquel.
Great shortstop. One of the most athletic guys ever played the position. Never really hit that well. No power.
He's got a 120 score. And
I can't imagine.
And I don't see
No,
it either.
I don't either.
don't
Not first ballot anyway.
No. You are listening to Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, and we are going to take a break and be back for our last segment. Flying by.
Like that again.
I turned you off.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
A little long off.
We are sponsored by Bill Bryan Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. They're located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441 in Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. We are back with our Red Zone Radio Sports here on WQBQ 1410, the voice of Lake County. And where are we going to move on next? Do you have some rants you want to do, or I'm done?
I've had a pretty good week, so I'm really not that wound.
Okay, that's
Right now,
good.
do you have one hiding around?
No, I don't actually.
I mean,
It's been very calm week.
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, if I can give a quick plug, I mean, we're doing some cool stuff up at the store.
Okay.
For people that haven't been there for a while, we kind of blew it up. It's been painted, and it's got new tile. I've got 3 new sales executives in there, and they really get it, and they're taking good care of the customers. I'm grateful for what they're doing up there, and we're doing some cool marketing. I'll tell you what, though, I went to a place the other day almost on the West Coast called Citrus Hills, the Villages of Citrus Hills, and they've got a beautiful setup over there. And I had a really good meeting with the pro at a place called Skyview. For any golfers that are listening, go play Skyview. I found this golf course called Skyview about 15 years ago.
I'm going to interrupt you because we got a call here.
We have a caller? Well, holy crap.
Caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead, ask your question.
You know what? You guys were talking about the Hall of Fame, and I just wanted to ask you guys' opinion on Thurman Munson.
Yeah, I think he's a borderline guy.
Yeah?
You know, the sad ending to his life, I think, puts him up, it heightens, the emotion heightens that he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
I just think he's so borderline that, and I don't even think he would only be eligible through the Veterans Committee, so he probably has a chance.
I would agree with that. He certainly has the emotional vote on his side, but he's a post guy because he's out. He didn't make it during his time.
Right.
I think he was only like a 260, 265 hitter, but he hit with some power.
Yeah, and I mean, he had a long enough career where you could say, he wasn't. I don't think he was going to get better. I mean, he played 15 years, I think, when he passed away. So it's not one of those things where he played 10 years and you go, oh, he lost 5 years of his prime.
Right.
And so there. But I think on an emotional level, and the fact that he is that he played for New York. I know he's not from New York. I think he's from Ohio.
Yeah, Midwest somewhere.
But yeah, I mean, I was a big Thurman Munson fan. Actually, when I caught, I pretended I was Thurman Munson. So
there's a joke somewhere, but I don't want to talk about the guy posthumously.
When you're in Little League, it's.
But that's a good question, and I would say he's got a shot, but it would be because they want him there, and that speaks to one thing I wanted to say about the All-Star game that people were talking about, that there should be, now that it doesn't matter anymore, that it's just an exhibition.
Right.
There should be an opportunity for people that their career's kind of over. They kind of get a shot to be in front of the crowd on a national level one last time. Maybe they only play a couple of innings, but it's kind of it's almost like you pick 2 or 3 guys where their careers are done, and you give them a shot. He would get that vote if he was around now. So I think that'd be another reason that they might consider putting him in the Hall.
Yeah.
Have you ever been there?
Yes.
It's cool.
How about you, caller? You ever been in the Hall of Fame?
I have. Yes. It's great.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. Love the show.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for calling in.
Right,
Johnny
Bye-bye.
Gomes was talking about, this is kind of funny. For anybody that doesn't know him, he's kind of an odd guy, but he was the guest announcer last night because Jerry Remy's back in surgery. He's got his cancer came back, and he's apparently recovering. Good for him. I actually played at Fenway with him.
Right.
In an All-Star game once. But anyway, so Johnny Gomes took his son to the Hall of Fame just recently. He's 6 years old. And they walked into a room, and there was a room that after the 2013 World Series, he had hit a home run to win the game. Hall came to him and said, would like to have this bat. And he was like, I hit a home run with this bat. I want to hit this. I want to use this bat every game for the rest of my career. And they took the bat, and it's now being presented and on display in the hall.
Right.
But what was funny was for him to pick it up, out of all people, they still made him wear white gloves. So it was his bat, and he wanted to touch it and wanted to have his son touch it, and they made him wear white gloves to do it. I thought it was kind of funny. I haven't been there for about probably 10 or 15 years, and I know it keeps changing because it does evolve. But it's such a cool place.
Yeah.
Have you been to any of the other halls?
No, I have not.
I went to the basketball one a long time ago, but I bet that's evolved. I mean, because that's only in Springfield, Mass.
Yeah.
But I haven't been to the NFL. I haven't been to the Hockey Hall of Fame. No. But those are really fun things. If you guys are traveling and you're looking for a fun day to just get out and do something unusual, if you have any interest in the sport, even if you don't, it's the history of how our country has evolved is all tied in to how the people of our country have followed sports and become fans, and I think it's been uplifting in a lot of different times, and it's been a resolve that we've committed to in a lot of different times. So go see all those if you could.
I'm from New York, and Cooperstown was probably about 5 hours away from where I lived, but we made the journey up there several times. What I find odd is that choice of a location for the baseball.
Yeah, I know, but it's funny to be in a town called Cooperstown. I mean, I don't know why it just fits. If it was in Albany, who'd care? But I don't. It is weird because it is the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful area.
It is a great area. Summer is only 4 days long.
Yeah.
It's 4 days in July and maybe 2 days in August. But so I mean, and I don't think they keep it open in the wintertime. If I'm not mistaken, I remember. Okay. I think I remembered seeing seasonal hours, but I don't know if it was open during the winter.
Probably nobody there in the winter.
Yeah, that would be a smart plan. They should be here.
But that's also it's named Cooperstown is named after James Fenimore Cooper, the famous author.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is he from there?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So you could go visit his homestead, So it's not.
That's neat.
It's just not a one-trick pony. It's two tricks.
It's two-trick pony. He's not. They don't have a stuffed version of anything sitting around or anything.
I'm not really sure about that.
Okay, that would be a bad plan.
But James, just for the people who are
not James Fenimore Cooper fans.
Yeah, he's the guy who wrote Last of the Mohicans. That's his claim to fame. So probably everybody's seen that Daniel Day-Lewis movie.
Yeah.
So he's the guy who wrote that book.
That's cool. Did he write another book?
Yeah, he most famous for it's called the Leatherstocking Tales, which is all about like Last of the Mohicans is part of that series of books he wrote about like that life.
And they weren't they from that neck of the woods?
Yeah, the Mohawks.
Yeah.
And he wrote some like spy novels. The first author ever to do that.
Oh, cool.
And he actually, now I might not remember this correctly, but I think this is pretty close. I might have the author wrong, but he would read like Charles Dickens, and he would go, "This is horrible, like horrible writing." So his wife said to him, "Well, if you can do better, you write."
Really?
So he actually sat down and started writing these books. And,
well, Dickens wrote in proper English, which we have never really quite mastered.
Well, the other funny thing about Dickens was at that time, you got paid by the word, not like,
Wow, I would be a gazillionaire if I get paid for the word that I speak every day.
And so...
Nonsensical, but rich.
Some of those books that he wrote went on and on and on when they didn't really need to go on and on and on. That's
they were lengthy. Yeah. But see, they would attribute that to detail.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that sets most authors apart, is they don't know how to create that picture.
Yeah.
It's not just a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day with white fluffy clouds, and it's got, the sky is a blue that I've never seen before. It's almost azure blue.
Right.
I mean, those sorts of things, if you really want to be, that's what I'm hoping that we get exposed to when we go to this improv class.
Right.
How do you create that mentality, that picture? My whole life is designed on being able to create pictures.
Right.
And I think that people in business, if they can create pictures with their customers,
Right.
and they actually find out what their customers are interested in and what they're there for. I mean, and all of this stuff ties back to sports, by the way. I was thinking about it when the coach was here this morning. I never had a coach that knew how to coach. I had a coach that knew how to keep people that might be on the borderline from probably killing their neighbor.
Right.
And it's so evolved to where these people actually know what they're doing now.
Yeah.
And they might have some psychology backgrounds, and they
Well-
might, that sort of stuff. I think is pretty impressive.
I'll tell you a guy who I was really low on, and that's Jameis Winston. The stuff that you read about him, and what was more shocking is if you read the stuff about him when he was in high school in the town that he grew up in, I was thinking that this guy was going to be the first, well, I guess he would be the second mass murderer in football after.
Was it really that bad?
He apparently he like tortured little animals and like everybody kept away from him, and he was just a troublemaker but my point of bringing this up is, and I don't know how much of that is true or not,
and how much has become a fish story over the years.
But having said that, he obviously he had some problems at Florida State.
Yep.
But what it showed me is the importance of athletics, especially kids who are rudderless.
Well, it's funny you say that. I was going to ask the coach that, and we don't have a whole lot of time. But this could have been a great topic. We could have spent a whole 2 hours on.
Right.
But when you think about it, I knew what I wanted as an athlete when I was a kid. I had no clue what I wanted from an education standpoint. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Right.
All I knew was that I loved baseball, I loved hockey, and I wanted to do those things.
Right.
Coincidentally, I ended up running track instead of playing baseball or hockey through high school. But anyway, I got to pursue them later. But I lost my dad when I was just a little kid. My dad died when I was only 16, so I never had that guidance, right?
Right.
But when you look at the overall scope of what the things that these kids get exposed to now,
Yeah.
I would be so interested in understanding why they have evolved the way that they have when they're on the good side. It's a whole lot easier to understand when they're pushing the other end of that spectrum, and and because they see it on TV, they hear about it on the internet, they talk about it in the news. There's so little positive reinforcement going on that no matter how good you are as parents, you haven't got the opportunity to really grab that kid by the nape of the neck and go, look, you need to figure this out now. Right? If you want to be an athlete, then you need to understand the words focus. You need to understand the words dedication. You need to understand commitment. And it's not just in the sport, it's in your life.
Yeah.
How do you commit to your friends? How do you commit to your family? How do you commit to your girlfriend? How do you commit to your classes?
Right.
Those things nobody teaches that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so when a coach like the coach who was here this morning from Leesburg, if he's as good as he sounded like he is, and his dedication to those kids is that deep and that thorough and that impactful, then now those kids have something that they can walk away from school and they can feel really good about. I don't care that they're not going to play in college, because he's right. Some of those kids might be stars in high school. They go to a Division II school and somebody looks at them and go, come on, you're just a little kid.
Right.
Go away and go be the manager.
Yeah.
But there's my rant. My rant is how do you grasp these kids early enough to make sure that they understand and comprehend that if they want to be successful in this world, there are things that they need to start doing now.
Well, and that's why I think athletics are so important. When schools talk about cutting those programs, it's so misguided, because it's not just about playtime.
No.
There are life lessons and that you get from playing sports.
It's not getting a trophy because you participated.
Right.
And it's the same with the arts, by the way. I mean,
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean you have to be an athlete. It
Right.
means you have to have some place to nurture whatever those skill sets
Absolutely.
are. I've always loved the opportunity to find young men and women that I can work with, from making them understand and comprehend attributes that they already have that they needed nurtured.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And when they find it, it's like this light bulb moment, and it's all really cool. I've seen and done the same thing playing sports. When you find all of a sudden that you've got an extra gear when you're running,
Right.
or you find that you can make a different turn to get back to the ball when you're playing golf,
Right.
or you found that all of a sudden that putting stroke that's really been vague and missing on you, oh my gosh, if I do just this, oh God, I can repeat that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if everybody realized that life is just a series of quality repetitions,
Yeah.
they would find a way to have more things that were repeatable.
Right.
And I think that comes true in athletics. And the sooner they learn that, I don't care if it's elementary school.
Sure.
And Little League, if the kids can start understanding the participation side of it isn't just participating,
Right.
it's winning and losing, because you're going to win or lose every day no matter what you do.
And that's where coaching does come in, because when I've actually played on some teams that were we just couldn't win, and we had good coach that kind of helped you get through that, because
Yep.
you're disappointed, you're young, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And it's like, but you have a good coach, and so you wanted to be there,
And you get the camaraderie,
Right.
even if everybody
Right.
buys into the fact
Right.
that you're losing. It may not be because you're terrible. It might just be that everybody else is much better.
Right. And then I've been fortunate enough where I've played on hockey teams that, we would go undefeated, and the coach would, go, hey, knock it off.
Right. You're making everybody else look bad.
Well, I mean, just like your ego or being an ungracious winner or whatever, and it's like
It's equally as important.
yeah, yep.
That's cool. This is, you know what? If I come back, we could spend a day talking about
we
this.
could. I mean, because I think again, I think these school districts that are cutting these programs are just so misguided.
And I think, in all honesty, Greg, I think it's because they don't know.
Right.
Maybe the principal, maybe the school department, maybe they've never been exposed to it enough to where they see what the kids can do if they're given the direction and ability and allowance to do so. And that's what's sometimes missing politically across our country, quite frankly.
Right.
But in the school system, it affects those kids at a really early
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
very cool. Hey, listen, we're done, I guess.
Yeah.
And thank you so very much for having me back.
thank
I
you.
really enjoy it.
Appreciate it. It's a lot of fun when you're in here, and you got to come in more often.
I will do that.
I know I don't want to spoil every Saturday for you, but
I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil every Saturday for your audience.
Oh no, not at all. Well, thank you for sitting in, and thank you all listeners for listening in. We will see you next week here on Red Zone Radio Sports, WQBQ 1410, sponsored by Bill Bryant Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, located at 3401 U.S. Highway 441, Fruitland Park. Their phone number is 352-787-2223. And I just want to mention that Ralph is in the house, so stay tuned for River Jordan and Friends. And we will see you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.